Hey folks, Jeff here at Backcountry. Appreciate y'all stopping by the channel today. Well, if you've been following along, you know that I'm pretty much always working on something. And even though I've always got major projects that I'm trying to focus on, it seems other things just pop up and get in my way. And today is no different. Luckily it rained yesterday, got about 3 inches of rain, so it's pretty wet outside and not really optimal to work on other projects anyway. So I got this project that's been kind of lingering in the background, and as summer gets nearer, it becomes more important. So what is it? Well, the air conditioner quit on my truck. Down here in Texas, you ain't going without no air conditioner. Not if you don't want to get your brain cooked. I kind of need my brain. So I need air conditioning. Anyway, my air conditioner quit working, I don't know, sometime several months ago, probably about in the fall. And it wasn't a priority because I had a lot of other stuff going on, trying to get the electric stuff done and everything else. And, well, it wasn't hot, and I knew winter was coming and it wasn't going to be hot, so I figured I could survive without air conditioning. But now we're well into spring and it's warming up all the time, and I've even had a couple times where I got a little warm in the truck and had to roll down the window. Can you believe it? It's like the old days, running down the road with the windows down, no air conditioning. Man, took me back a few. But those days are long gone. And I figure now, I deserve air conditioning. I earned it. I've paid for it. I got it. Just gotta fix it. So let me grab some tools and let's do some troubleshooting and see if we can figure out what's going on. All right, if you're new or haven't been following along, my truck is a 2003 Ford F-150 Lariat. I bought this truck practically new in 2004. It had about 1,200 miles on it, and I've had it ever since, and it's been a great truck. But it was manufactured in early 2003, and, well, to be honest, it's getting old. So, things are starting to go out periodically, and the air conditioner is just one of those things. At 21 years old, I guess it's done pretty good to just be giving up the first time now. So, no worries there. So let's start out by troubleshooting. So the first thing I did, I grabbed a manifold set. This is just a cheap Harbor Freight air conditioning manifold. I typically use it to check the air conditioning on some of my heavy equipment. And, well, today I'm going to use it on the truck. So the first thing we need to do, the blue side is your low pressure side, the red side is your high pressure side. And we're going to connect that up to the truck and see if we've got Freon. Now, judging by the way the air conditioner is working, it just quit working, meaning it doesn't turn on at all. So that could be a number of things. I mean, you got pressure sensors that could have gone out and that would cause it not to turn on. You've got the clutch on the compressor that could have went out and so it can't turn on. I mean, there's a number of things. But to me, at 21 years old, considering that the air conditioner was working and then the next time I tried to use it, it wasn't, my first suspicion is maybe a leak in the system, and so there's no Freon. And that, of course, would mean that the pressure sensors are basically sensing zero, and so it won't turn on the compressor, which is exactly how it's supposed to work. So the first thing we're going to do is hook this baby up. So the way these work, they have these quick connect deals on them that will connect onto the truck's ports on the air conditioner system. Of course, the first thing I did was made sure that all my dials on the manifold are closed, so nothing is open. So all I'm doing is connecting at this point. This port right here, the most obvious one, this is our high pressure port. And if you're wondering, each port is actually a different size, so you can't connect your high pressure to your low pressure or vice versa. The high pressure is bigger. So basically it's like a quick connect coupling. You push it on and then release it and it's attached. That simple. And our low pressure port is somewhere down here, I believe. Yep, there it is. I feel it. So I'm gonna have to get up under there, but basically it's clear back up under here, which is underneath all this electronic hoo-ha there. So I'm gonna have to put down the camera and hook that one up. Okay, I'll say the Ford engineer that came up with that one is a little bit of an a-hole. That sucker is a pain in the butt. So first thing, I couldn't get the protective cap off of it, which means I needed to get a little pair of channel locks in there to grab onto it and get it going. And of course there is zero room in there, so the smallest pair of channel locks I got struggled, and I was able to just barely turn that thing, I don't know, not even, you know, just barely a little bit, 1/16 of an inch or something every time. So that was a pain in the butt. Finally I got it loosened up enough to where I could take it off by hand. And then of course you gotta squeeze under there to fit that connector on there for your quick connect. And boy, that was a pain. And of course it's dark under there and you can't see nothing, and man, what a challenge. But I got it on there. So next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to open up the ports on those quick connects so that we have pressure to the line, and let's see what our gauges tell us. Okay, I opened up the high pressure and the low pressure side. Just the lines, the manifold you don't need to open. That goes straight into the gauges. And well, just as I suspected, 0 and 0, we have no freon. So that means there's a leak in the system somewhere, which could be almost anywhere. And now we've got to see if we can find that leak. Don't worry, I have a plan. And here is my plan. A flashlight. Wow. You mean we could take a LED flashlight and inspect the system and find out where a leak is? Yes, we can. How? Because this isn't a normal flashlight. I don't know how well you can see that in the camera, but if you look at our gauges there, notice the difference. This is a UV light. So it's not a normal flashlight, it's like a black light, UV light. And basically what we're doing is your air conditioner has dye in it. And that UV dye can tell you where you've got a leak. It's cool how it makes things light up and shine, fluorescent. But that's not what we're looking for. We're looking for fluorescent dye, splatter, whatever, around our air conditioning components. So under there we've got the accumulator, and I don't see anything around that. Typically, if you're going to leak out your whole system, we should be seeing like splatter. Now, interesting, there's some stuff that kind of looks splattery there, but that could be anything. I don't think it's the air conditioner stuff. And there's not really any place for that to leak, so I'm not worried about that. Trying to see through the grill and look down. Interesting enough is bug splatter. Almost looks UV. See, there's some bug on my bumper. So I guess that's proteins from the bug guts. And let's see over here. Oh, wait a minute. Now that's interesting. Okay, so that's the compressor right there. Now, I don't know how well this is showing up in the camera, but I see splatter all over the back of the compressor. Now, interesting enough, the way that I see splatter, I have two concerns. One, so right there, so this is a manifold that basically connects two of your hoses to your compressor. And so typically you might expect a leak, you know, on your hoses or whatever. I didn't see anything on the hoses, but when I come around the manifold, I do see some splatter all around it, which leads me to believe that the possibility of the O-rings under that manifold could have gone bad, and it's leaking around that manifold. And right there on the side, that's a high pressure relief valve, so basically that's a safety device. But what concerns me about that is when I look in the hole where it would spit it out, I see a little bit of dye. Not positive that that's bad, but it could be. So there's nothing on the back of the compressor that I'm aware of that should leak. So I'm guessing all that splatter had to come out of this manifold. And if I look at the top, again, I don't know how well you can see it on the camera, but at the top, I mean, I see it back in there again around the manifold. And I see some in the front around the manifold. So, and there's even some down there. So yeah, everything I can see gives me concern about that manifold. So that's my first area of attack, is those O-rings. And I think I'm going to go ahead and see if I can get, I know I can order hoses that comes with the manifold and everything, but if I don't find any evidence on the hoses of leak, which I haven't, well, there is more splatter on the compressor also. So it's really hard to say. The compressor could be leaking, which if we need a new compressor, we gotta tear that whole system apart. But I don't see any evidence of the hoses themselves leaking. You know, usually when you look at a hose, it's going to be around the crimped fitting maybe, or somewhere the hose itself has gone bad. I don't even see splatter, so I'm pretty confident so far about the hoses. But I'm concerned about that manifold, and I do have some concern about the compressor itself. But before I go there, I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to get some O-rings. I think I even have some universal air conditioning O-rings that I bought for other equipment. And I'll see if I can find one of those pressure relief valves. And then I'd like to just make that repair. And then we'll put a vacuum on the system and see if it holds vacuum. And if it'll hold the vacuum, then that'll tell us that, okay, that's the only leak. I mean, there could be more. Could be all the O-rings in this are bad. If that O-rings in the compressor are bad as well, then, you know, we'll have to replace the compressor. And if I'm going to replace the compressor, that's a major opening to the system, which then means I'm supposed to replace like the dryer. I think in this case the dryer is the accumulator. and there might be a dryer built into those hoses as well. I don't recall. So yeah, let's see about that first. We'll start there, and then we'll use vacuum to figure out where we're at. So anyway, that's where we're at. Stick with us. Let's see how it goes. Okay, so here's the parts I ordered. This is a Motorcraft YF52-1X. Bunch of other numbers. There you go. Anyway, that's that pressure relief valve. And then this is just a universal set of air conditioning O-rings. So hopefully that gives us what we need to fix this thing. Now I am a little concerned about this pressure relief deal. I mean, it looks different, so I'm not positive that that's it or not, but everything online said that's the part, so let's see if it is or not. First thing I got to do is get the other one off. That one there is a 14 millimeter. Hopefully the one on the truck is the same, so let's get in there and take a look. Okay, I got my flashlight in there to give us some light, and this 14 millimeter wrench does fit on it, and it actually broke free relatively easy. So gonna take it off and compare it to the other one. Hopefully, yeah, I can unloosen it with my hand. That's a good thing. So the reason I'm doing this pressure relief valve first is because with the manifold still bolted to the compressor, it just gives me a strong surface to hold it steady while I swap this out. And looking at it now, it does look like the same thing, so we'll set them side by side and compare them here in a second. I can see my O-ring is stuck in there, so I'll have to get a pick and take that out, but so far so good. Okay, so here's the side by side comparison on those. They're not exactly the same. This one, the hex bolt portion whatever is shorter, and the, I guess I'll call it the relief throat, is longer. That's the difference between them. As far as looking down it, I mean, there's a hole there. Looking down this one, there's a hole there. Same thing on the other side. Threads are the same. So I'm gonna guess that's a suitable replacement. Who knows if they changed it out over the years or just the difference, I don't know, but gonna go ahead and put that back on there. Now before I put it back on, I'm gonna lubricate this O-ring a little bit with some PAG oil. PAG oil is your standard air conditioner oil. It's a synthetic. PAG 46 is what I'm using. So just gonna use that to lubricate that O-ring a little bit, and then we'll put it in there. Alright, so I just put a drop of that PAG oil on there, rubbed it around that O-ring just to lubricate it, and now I just got to reach in there and thread this thing into that hole where I took it out of. I did remove that other O-ring, and of course the fit is tight, but it's hand threading in, so at least it's the right size. And in the end, I guess it just comes down to pressure, if it's the right pressure. Now this thing was not cheap. I ordered it off of Amazon because I wanted it quick, and with Prime it got here in 2 days. But it was like 44 bucks. Okay, and that's all there is to putting that piece on. Next thing I got to do is pull that manifold off. That's a 10 millimeter. And if I didn't mention that
other deal was 14 millimeter. So I'm going to get a 10 millimeter socket in there and see if I can loosen that up so we can get to those O-rings. Alright, I got me a 10 millimeter socket, and I'm doing all this through the wheel well. This may not be the best way to do this, I don't know. Again, that's how I do everything, the hard way. Or whatever works. So the first thing I'll tell you is that sucker's tight. Ah, there it goes. And I hope we can get it out by hand now. And it seems to be unthreaded. Now down here in Texas, we don't have the same problems with rust and everything else, so this is all coming apart fairly easy. Whereas, I don't know if you're up north or somewhere where they like salt the roads and all kind of stuff like that, and your vehicles are always corroded and rusted, and this may be a lot more difficult. I don't know. Alright, well, that came apart fairly easy, and you can see there's one O-ring there, and it don't look good. Yeah, them things look pretty well corroded down, almost dry rotted, whatever you want to call it. I don't know if I'm even showing that on the camera or not. Yeah, okay. So this O-ring here don't look good. Anyway, so we're gonna get those O-rings out of there, clean that up a little bit, and then we're gonna see if we can put it back together with new O-rings. So I'm gonna have to put the camera down to do this, because it's hard enough to do all this with one hand, but it's also a very tight space. So basically what I'm doing, I'm just gonna pull these O-rings out. Yeah, it won't come out with my finger, so I got to get a pick and pull them out. One stuck to the manifold on the top side, and I can get that one off, I think. Yep, so there's one, and it looks pretty flat on both sides, so not in great shape. So I'm pretty sure that's part of the problem. So we'll get that other one out of there and see if we can match sizes. I got a pick, remove the O-ring. Now here's it's weird, my camera's all like tilted. Okay, so here's the O-rings, and these old ones are flattened on both sides. They're not in great shape. They're a little bit hard and flat on both sides, so that's the main thing. These soft, pliable, rounded. Anyway, the universal kit, these are the closest O-rings I could find. Look to be about the right size. So all we're going to do now is we're going to put a little PAG oil on those and lube them up and put them back in where they go. Okay, so I did clean that up a little bit just with the rag, wiped it all out. Lube these up with that PAG oil, which just feels like a mineral oil actually, but I don't know what it is. It says synthetic. Okay, I press those in to where they sit. They're seated. Now I'm going to move this manifold back into position here, and it's got lips on it so you can actually feel it go into position. And I'm going to put the bolt back in and tighten her down. And if we're really lucky, that's our repair. Of course, then we'll have to recharge the system and everything, vacuum it the whole bit. But once we get this all tightened down and everything, then the next thing we'll do is vacuum it and see if it holds vacuum. And if it does, then odds are in our favor. Okay, hand tight. Get my wrench back on there. This is a tight space to be working in, but if this fixes it, man, that'll be awesome, because it's much better than tearing the whole dang thing apart. I don't know what the torque spec is, I'm just torquing her down. Feels tight. Should be good. Alright. So we made that repair. Put a new pressure relief valve on there, a couple of O-rings. Let's see if that does the job. So next we'll go to the vacuum. So our manifold is again connected to our vehicle, the high and low pressure ports. I've already opened the dials or valves near the ports themselves. I have not opened the valves on the manifold. And the yellow charging hose is connected to a vacuum pump. So we're going to turn on the vacuum pump and see if we can start getting a vacuum. We need to open the valves. And you can see it's drawn down already. And so we're actually going to let this run probably for about 30 minutes and get a good vacuum on there. Alright, I got busy and ran the vacuum for about 45 minutes. It looks like we're at about 29 inches of mercury as far as our vacuum. I've already shut off the high pressure. Now I'm going to close the low pressure side. And then I'm going to turn off the pump. And so now I'm going to let it sit and see what happens. Hopefully after an hour or so, the vacuum will remain the same, saying that we are at least suggesting, I guess, that we don't have any leaks. If it holds, I would hope we don't have any leaks. And then we'll be able to recharge the system and be good to go. Some points that I'll make. Number one, it is illegal to release your Freon into the air. So had we have had any Freon in the system, and if I needed to take it apart, then I would have had to find a place to, what do they call it? Take out the Freon, to evacuate the system. And basically they capture the Freon by sucking it out with a machine for that. My brain ain't working right now, so there's professional terms for all that, but remember, I'm not a professional. I'm just a good old country boy that does stuff himself as much as I can. Anyway, so that's important to know. It's also important to think of things like we didn't really take the system apart. It wasn't left open for any period of time. Even though it had a leak, it was still closed up. So I'm not worried about lots of moisture in the system and things like that. Now, the whole point of vacuuming it is not only to check for leaks, but also by vacuuming it down, there's some science behind it. I'm not a scientist, but basically the gist of it is that the boiling point in a vacuum is much lower, and it causes the moisture to basically evaporate, and then it's removed by the vacuum. So it dries the system somehow.
in science. You'd have to research that to get all the exact details, but trust me, there is some science there behind it. And yeah, that's you got to do that. So once we know that the system's all good and that we're not leaking, we vacuumed it down. Like I say, we're at like 29, could be 28, 29, somewhere right in there. I believe that's inches of mercury is the term for that, how it's measured. But I'm just simply looking at the gauge here, and that's what it's telling me. So anyway, yeah, then we'll add Freon to the system if everything's good to go. And basically on the truck we've got a label here. Now granted, this is 21 years old and it's still all legible, so that's pretty good, but it says it uses R134A, which most systems do. And then it tells us that we're F series less GCC. I'm not sure what GCC stands for. I'll have to look that up, but since I don't know, I'm pretty sure that we don't have it. Here's the Blackwood and GCC F series. We're just going to go with regular F series, which says we need 33 ounces of Freon. And this is for oil, if we needed to put oil in it, but because we did not remove the compressor and we did not evacuate the system, the oil's still going to be in there, so we don't need to put any oil in. That's, you know, a simple job like this I don't mind doing. If it got too technical, then I would take it to a shop and let them do it. At a minimum, if let's say the leak was on the inside in the evaporator coil, which is way inside the dash, and that's a lot of hours of labor to get to that. I would not pay somebody else to do that. I'd tear that all apart myself and remove it. And if we still had Freon in there, then I would take it to a shop, pay them to reclaim the Freon and, you know, evacuate the system. Then I would bring it back here, tear it apart, replace almost the entire system. Because I'm tearing it down that far, I'm going to replace everything, or pretty much. And then basically recharge the system from there. And then in that case, you know, we'd have to put, you know, if I put a new compressor, new oil, everything, and dye, and, you know, just redo the entire system. But because this was a minor, in my opinion, a minor repair, I mean, it looks like we just had a leak, some O-rings, and that maybe that high pressure valve. I'm not even positive on that. I just went ahead and replaced it because better safe than sorry. And we're going to test it, make sure it doesn't leak, and then we'll recharge it and be good to go. So that's pretty simple in my opinion as far as working on an AC unit. There's a lot of things I could have done differently. And, you know, for example, if you don't know if there's blockage, then you probably need to do the valves a little bit different. You know, like just open up the low side, let it vacuum down, and see if that draws a vacuum on the high side. If it doesn't, then there's a blockage somewhere and you'd have to fix that. I wasn't worried about any of that stuff because literally, I mean, this AC system was working and then it wasn't. So it seemed, you know, like an overnight change to me, and I suspected a leak, and that's pretty confident that's what it was. So now we just wait and see if we get a change. So far the vacuum is holding pretty steady, so that's a good sign. We're gonna walk away and come back in an hour or so and check it again. All right, folks, it's been actually 3 days. I had to order a scale so I could measure out the Freon, and it took some time to get here. So this thing's been sitting under vacuum. As you can see, it's held the vacuum. It's still sitting at about 29 inches of mercury. right about where we left it. So 3 days, looks like 0 loss. I'm good with that. So let's see, I got 3 cans of Freon here. That's R134A, they're 12-ounce cans. These just come from Walmart. I got the adapter that fits the cans and fits the fill hose on the manifold. I also got some more UV dye and the scale. So the next thing we need to do is we need to start up the truck, turn on the air conditioner on max setting and high. So I'm gonna do that and be right back with you. All right, the truck is running. The air conditioning is set to max. Of course, the compressor's not running right now because it's got no Freon in it. So now what I want to do is see if I can put some of this UV dye into the hose, the fill hose, because that's just the easy way to get it into the system. And if you look at your hose, one side has a fitting to compress I forget the name of the fittings, like a tire, you know, the fitting. You got to push that center pin down. So anyway, one side has a deal for that and the other side is open. So I undid it to the open side, and I'm just going to pour some of this dye into the hose. You really only need about maybe a 1/4 ounce of the dye, so I've got it on myself, so I'm going to glow in the dark now. So that should do that. Putting the hose back on the manifold with that dye inside of it. That way when the Freon goes in, it'll put that in. Now normally, if you were replacing your compressor, you would mix it with the oil when you put the oil in your compressor, but because we didn't touch the compressor, we don't need to put any more oil in there. So I didn't do it that way. All right. We're going to take a can of Freon. Like I said, this is 12-ounce Freon, 134A. Now remember, our tag said we needed 33 ounces of Freon to fill the system. Well, 3 cans is 36 ounces. That's why I got a scale. The last can, we're going to try to use weight to measure that out and get as close as we can to that 33. Now right now my valves are still closed, so what I'm going to do first is open this valve, and then I'm going to open this valve. I only need to open the low side, don't need to open the high side at all. Do not open the high side, because that'll pressure back and it can actually blow this can up, so that'd be dangerous. So just going to kind of go back and forth and dip it in there, and now you hear the compressor kick on. So that tells us our compressor's good. It's going on and off right now because the pressure's still low. But the good news is that's helping us get this in there, and you can actually look through the sight window and see the Freon going through, so that's good. Hard to move around with my tripod here, but try to give you a shot. There we go. So this can's about empty already. Now, before we go to the next can, you've got to close the manifold here. Otherwise, if you leave it open, when you take the can off, it's going to flow back because there's nothing there to stop it from flowing. So we turn that off, and then we can open up the valve again, and then we can undo it from the can. You want to do that real slow and careful because there might be just a little bit of pressure in there. Okay, we got good, no pressure, so that can was totally empty. And we'll go to our second can. Screw that on there. And we're going to open our valve here. And then we're going to open our manifold again. Now, if you do it with the can right side up, basically gases are going to flow. If you turn the can upside down, then it pumps in the pure liquid Freon. And so I like to kind of go back and forth, maybe sideways. Otherwise, it does a massive dump super fast and it'll freeze the can. You don't really need to do that. Just want a nice steady flow. And again, you can see the Freon through the sight window flowing in there. And when I turn the can back right side up, the Freon disappears. It's just gas going through. Turn it upside down again, and there's the Freon again going through. So you can see how that works. And you can see the pump now stays on for longer durations. Still clicking off, but it's staying on for longer duration because the pressure's coming up. It appears that I've emptied the second can. So again, I'm going to close my manifold, and then I'm going to close the valve here on the can, and I'm going to unscrew the can off the fitting. Now on the third can, this is where it gets challenging. So the third can, I'm going to attach it to my hose just like normal. And now I've got to use my scale. So let me get the camera here set up to where we can see what I'm doing. Okay, so there's my little scale. I'm going to turn on the scale. And I want to get my initial weight just how it is with the hose. So it says 18.41 ounces is where it settled out. 0.45, 48. It's kind of bouncing around a little bit. 5.2. .59. Okay, so it looks like 18.59 ounces. I'm gonna go ahead and 8.62 now. 6.6. I don't know why it's gaining weight. 7.0. Okay, so here's the deal. It's 18 and change, and it's going to keep changing. But 18 ounces, we need to take off 3 ounces. So wait, we put in 24 ounces, and we need 33 ounces. Let me verify. Yeah, we need 33 ounces. So 24 and 10 is 34, so we need 9 ounces, which means this says 18 ounces right now, so we need to take it down to 9 ounces and change. So that's what we're looking for. Get this can down to 9 ounces and change. So I'm again gonna open up my valve on the can, and I'm gonna open up my manifold. And I just ran a bunch out of there. Okay, it's down to 15 ounces and change, so do another dump. $13. $11. $10. Getting real close. $9.81. That's it. So now I'm closing my valve here so that the can stops emptying. Okay. And then I'm going to close my manifold. Check on the scale one more time. 9.7781. So looks like we're almost perfect at 33 ounces. Now this is a resealing or self-sealing whatever can, so some cans do not reseal, so you got to pay attention. You need the kind that reseal if you've got to use a partial can, unless you can find cans that add up to the exact weight you need. Okay, so there's still Freon in this can. It says there's 6.1 ounce in that can. This is an empty can, 3.49, so pretty close to 3 ounces right in this can. That's perfect. That's exactly what we needed. Getting this exact is going to be pretty hard unless you can find cans that have exactly what you need, but we're close enough. Okay, so here's our gauges now. Again, you can see looks like 170, I don't know what that is. Whatever, 150 plus 2 bars, whatever that equals out to. And the other one about 29. So, but they're staying steady. That's all good. Now let's go inside and check what the inside's doing. All right, so I still got it set on max AC, and I can tell you from sitting here, man, it is blowing cold. Looks like it's blowing at about 48 degrees. 47.6. Let's try this other one. 48, 47.6, 47.3. Wow. 45.8 it went down to. So that is cold air conditioning. So I'm gonna say we fixed it. It's definitely blowing cold. Now we'll give it a few days and see how it holds up, but I'm pretty confident based on our vacuum test that it's going to be good to go. And dang, it's cold. That's Texas air conditioning right there. Perfect. All right, the only thing we got left to do now is to disconnect all our manifold and put our dust caps back on the ports. So the big thing about this process is make sure that all your valves are closed before you disconnect anything. So these we already closed, but we'll double check them. They're closed. And then we need to close our valves on the quick connects and make sure they're closed before we disconnect them. So first we'll do the high side. Turn that baby off. And then we'll go ahead and disconnect it. And put our dust cap back on. And that one is done. And next we'll have to deal with that bad one down there that's way underneath. So the first thing I want to do is close it. Okay, so I got it closed. And then I'm gonna have to get under there and get a hold of it to pop it free. And we got it. And then I need to put my little dust cap back on. And we're good to go. As always, folks, we appreciate you coming to our channel, watching our videos, and supporting our channel. If you haven't done so already, don't forget to like, subscribe, do all that stuff, because you never know what our next video is going to be on. It just depends on what we're doing. Anyway, as always, take care, God bless, and we'll see you on the next one.